Hi friends, welcome to my channel, and today in this video I am going to show you how to install and configure SQL Server 2019 Failover Cluster. So this is going to be basically a step-by-step guide to configure a two-node Windows based SQL Server Failover Cluster. So in this video we are going to configure two SQL nodes, and then we are going to install and configure first Windows Server Failover Clustering roles and features on those two nodes, and then we are going to install SQL Server 2019 on both nodes, and then we are going to have a failover cluster for SQL DB instance. So let's start step by step. So this is my demo environment which I have created for this environment. So I have total 4 virtual machines which is running on my VMware workstation. Here you can see I'm running VMware workstation on my machine, and this is VMware workstation 15 Pro. And just to let you know, my physical machine having around 128 gig of memory, and then I got one i7 processor. So this is my physical machine configuration, and on this I'm running these 4 virtual machines. So the first machine is Active Directory and DNS server, which is Win2k19 DC01, and my domain name is labshands-on.com, and my Active Directory and DNS server IP address is 192.168.1.101. So here is my Active Directory and DNS role, you can see install on this machine, and this is Win2k19 DC01, and this is my domain name, and this is the IP address of domain controller. And the next machine, I got my iSCSI target server. This is basically a storage server which is providing a shared storage to both my SQL nodes. So since if you have a physical environment and you are doing this for any corporate environment or a production environment, then you will get definitely storage from any of the storage box, like you can say Nimble, Dell EMC, or any other storage box. But in this demo I am going to use a Windows based iSCSI target server to have a shared storage across my clusters node. And then we have two SQL nodes which is also running Windows Server 2019. So this is SQL node 1, which is, here is my first SAN server, iSCSI server, which is Win2k19 SAN, and you can see I have two NICs on this machine. So one for the domain connectivity, which is 192.168.1.102, and second NIC is for iSCSI connectivity, basically storage connectivity with 10.10.10.102. So this is my this machine, and this machine having 2 vCPU and 8 memory, and my domain controller having 2 vCPU and 6 gig of memory. So this is my Win2k19 SQL 1. So this machine having join in my domain, which is labshands-on.com, and this machine got 4 NICs. So I'm going to describe your NICs network IP configuration on this page. So just to give you idea, we got 4 NICs on both the SQL nodes, and these are 2 SQL nodes. So this is Win2k19 SQL 1 and join in my domain, and this is Win2k19 SQL 01 02 with domain join. And you can see both my SQL machines having one disk only, which is C drive of 60 gig for the OS installation. So you can see this machine SQL 2 also having 60 gig drive for operating system. So this all 4 virtual machines are running on Windows Server 2019 standard operating system. You can see here Windows Server, Microsoft Windows Server 2019 standard. So this is my 4 virtual machines which I am going to use in this environment. So now we need to discuss about the networking part in next page. So this is IP address configuration for cluster nodes. So I got 2 cluster nodes in my demo. So we got 4 NICs. So the first NIC is for domain. This is basically a domain connectivity with my domain, which is labshands-on.com. So this is my domain. labsandson.com. So first nick is for domain connectivity, so this require everything like DNS configuration, gateway configuration, all other configuration. So just to show you, this is my domain connection. You can see I have configured IP address, gateway and DNS. So this is going to be a outside connect on my domain infrastructure or LAN infrastructure. So next machine is NIC is our heartbeat network, which is basically having no gateway or no DNS. So you can see, so this is only having IP address. So this is basically heartbeat network NIC, you can say, which is going to be used for the Windows Failover cluster to check the heartbeat of the both SQL nodes. So I got heartbeat network on this machine also. And then next NIC is going to be used for live migration. You can see here, this is going to be basically a cluster network which is going to be used during the live migration from SQL DB instance from one node to another node. So I called it here live migration. You can see this having only IP address configure. So this is also a direct connectivity, you can say. And last one, I have iSCSI network, which is basically also not having DNS or gateway. So since this is a lab environment, so I don't require any gateway or DNS address for storage. So you can see here, uh, both both uh, both SQL nodes are pre-configured with the IP address and join in my domain. So this is IP address configuration. So now let's move to requirement page. So this is the requirement for SQL Server 2019 cluster. So the first thing which you need, pre-installed Windows Server machine. It may be a physical or virtual, and you need to join that machine in domain. So this we already have, we have installed and configured. So IP configured on all NICs on SQL nodes, so we have already this done. So next you need a service account for SQL database instance and local administrator rights on SQL node cluster. So basically you need a service account in your Active Directory, which is going to be used to install and configure and run the service, run the SQL DB instance. So if I go to my Active Directory server, you can see here, if I go to users, you can see I got the SQL admin account. So this is basically my service account, you can say, which having password never expire, and this account is added in both SQL nodes in a local administrator. So it will get the local administrator rights on both the nodes. You can see here labs and so on SQL admin, and you can verify same on the other node. So you can see here, so this is what you need from the rights perspective. And next we got shared storage or LUN on both SQL nodes, which is mentioned in my first slide. Here you see the shared storage is need to be available on both. So we have not configured it yet, so we are going to do it during this step-by-step installation and configuration. And next you need a ISO file for SQL Server 2019 setup. So this I already have. And last one is you need a DNS A host record pre-created for Windows Failover Cluster and SQL DB instance. So I'm going to create this now. So to create this, I'm going in my Active Directory server and going to open the DNS management console. So if you don't have rights on a DNS server and you're a SQL DBA, you can request your Active Directory team to create this DNS record for you before you go ahead and install the cluster, Windows Failover and a SQL cluster. So this is WinSQL class 01. So I'm going to create it, WinSQL class 01, and the IP address is going to be a 192.168.1.99. You can see here this is our DNS host. So I am going to create, so you can see now it's created. And next I'm going to create SQL DB01. So SQL DB01, this is going to be our instance name for SQL database. So 100. So both the DNS record is now created, you can see, and I got the reverse lookup uh, record also created. You can see 99 for the 99 IP address and 100. So we got both DNS record created, and now the requirement part is completed. Basically we can go ahead and to perform a step-by-step installation and configuration for SQL Server 2019. So first step is configure IP address on all next and join SQL Server in domain. So I marked as a green because we have already completed this. So next step, basically failover clustering and multipath IO on both SQL nodes. So basically we need to install failover clustering and multipathing. So I'm going on my SQL node 1 first, and then go to manage, add role and features. So click next. So these both are part of features, so just go on feature page. Here you can see I'm on feature page, and select Windows failover clustering, and you need to scroll down and you will see multipathing IO. So this is required if you are using any HBA basically, or any um, since you are basically going to have a access on the same time on the shared disk, which is going to be accessed by the node 1 and node 2 both. So you require a multipathing to allow this to be happen. So you can see provide support using multi-data path on storage device Windows. So go ahead and install this. So I'm going to mark restart the destination server automatically if required. So this is going to automatically restart my machine. So same, I'm going to perform on my SQL node 02. So go to features page and Windows failover clustering, and scroll down, select multipathing IO, click next, and restart the destination server automatically if required, and go ahead. And now you can see the installation on a SQL 01. It's going to be completed soon, and then this machine is going to be automatically reboot. So you can see now this machine SQL 01 is rebooting, and same the SQL 02 is also going to reboot soon. So it's now booting, and SQL 02 is also rebooted. So I got login screen on SQL 01. So I'm going to log in with my credential with the service account which we have configured. So I'm using service account to log into the SQL nodes. So you can see installation succeeded, so this is good news. And let's log in on SQL 02. Next task is going to be install and configure iSCSI target server and create LUN. So I'm going to create this now. So I need to go to on a storage server, but if you are a SQL admin or Windows admin and you are creating Windows failover cluster or SQL failover cluster, you don't require to perform this install and configure iSCSI target server, because this is something which needs to be done by storage team. And definitely if you are managing the storage devices, then you need to create a LUN for this Windows failover cluster and SQL cluster to be used. So I'm going to do it for the lab purpose here. And if you don't have the dedicated storage device in your organization or in your lab, then definitely you can go ahead and install this. So from the role, this is going to be a role basically, and I'm going to select Win2K19 SAN. And if you expand this file and storage services and file services, you will see here iSCSI target. So I'm going to install this iSCSI target server on this machine and just go ahead and install it. So this is going to be a simple installation, it's not going to take much time. So just to tell you, we got one dedicated around 2 TB of disk for iSCSI storage, where we are going to create the LUNs and going to store those LUNs here. So let's wait for the installation to be finished, then I will create the LUN. So installation succeeded, we are good. Now I'm going to click from the dashboard of the server manager. I'm going to click on file and storage services, and here we got iSCSI. So now you can see to create iSCSI disk, start a new virtual disk wizard. So I'm going to click on it and then select the iSCSI virtual disk location. So I'm going to save it on D drive. So click next, and then what is the disk name called? So SQL, I'm going to call it quorum disk. So this is going to be basically a witness disk for the Windows Failover Cluster. So I'm going to give it 1 gig only, and then we need to assign the new iSCSI target since we don't have any existing target. So I'm going to click on next, and then I'm going to call it so basically prod SQL nodes, and I'm going to add both SQL nodes IP address in access node. So this is going to be their basically storage network, since the storage NIC is going to be access this iSCSI server on for the target iSCSI target. So this is the IP address on both node. So 10.10.10.111, and second one is going to be a 112. So I'm going to click on OK. So now you will see both the IP addresses added, so we are good. Just don't require any enable any champ authentication. So just click on create. Now you can see the iSCSI virtual disk is created and target is also created, and now we need to create one more disk. So for the SQL installation database where we are going to store the database, so now select the D drive and call it SQL disk 01 and click next, and then I'm going to give it like 501 gig size and click next, and I'm going to use same prod SQL nodes. Just click on create, and now we got two disks created for SQL cluster. So this is good, we have created successfully. We have installed and configured iSCSI target and created our LUNs, and this is we have already done create DNS record in our last step. So create DNS record for Windows Failover Cluster and SQL database instance already created, and now we need to enable the multi-pathing and restart both nodes. So basically by enabling the multi-pathing, you are going to tell server like you need to have a multi-pathing feature enabled. So I'm going to click on tools, and since we installed the multi-pathing and Windows Failover Cluster cluster, you can see both is added now. I'm going to click on MPIO, and then on the discovery multi-pathing path I'm going to click add support for iSCSI devices since I'm using iSCSI target. So click on add, you can see operation completed successfully, and this is automatically going to reboot sometime your machine. Since this is 2019, it does not require I guess, but I recommend you to go ahead and restart your machine after enabling the multipathing. So going to do it on SQL node 2. So this is done, and now I have rebooted both nodes. So going to log in on SQL node 01, and the next step is discover iSCSI target and add a disk on both SQL nodes. So this is the next step. So first let's log in on both SQL nodes, and now I have logged in. So I'm going to click on iSCSI initiator to connect the disk, and this is going to say like Microsoft iSCSI server is not running, this is required to be start. And also if you automatically want to restart this service each time, click yes button. So yes, now it's going to launch the iSCSI initiator. You can see here iSCSI initiator is open now, and you can see we got only one disk which is operating system disk, and now I'm going to add the target which is 102. So this is my basically a server IP address iSCSI target server which is having the storage connectivity. So now click on connect and you will see this is got connected, and now you can see we got two disks here. So first one I'm going to bring both the disk online, and then I'm going to initialize both the disk. So now I'm going to create this first disk as a quorum disk. So I'm going to assign this disk letter Q. So quorum disk, and I'm going to format it, and the second disk I'm going to assign S letter. So this is going to be used for SQL. So SQL disk 01. So now I have added disk on SQL 01 node, and now need to repeat the same step on the other node. So if I open the disk management, you'll see it's got only one disk now. So we need to launch the iSCSI target initiator basically and click on yes. And now I'm going to provide the path. So 192.168.1.102. This is going to be 10.10.10.102 and click connect. So now you can see we got two disks connected, but we don't require to create a partition. Just bring online. You can see it's got the disk letter assigned. So I want to correct the disk letter. So quorum disk is going to be use Q, and this SQL disk is going to be use S. So this is corrected now. So if you now go on both the SQL nodes, you will see the Q and S disk is available on both the SQL nodes. Just let's verify once. So you can see, so these two SQL nodes having now same disk available. So now we need to create a Windows failover cluster and modify the cluster disk and network settings. So now I'm going to create the Windows failover cluster. So from any of the two nodes you can basically create this. So I'm going to click on, from the SQL node 01, I'm going to click on tools and Windows failover cluster manager, and then basically I'm going to you can directly create a cluster and you can run the validation also. So I'm going to create a cluster with the validation. So you just need to create, right click on this Windows Failover Cluster Manager and then create cluster, then click next, and now you need to search for the nodes. So I'm going to search for my two nodes. So SQL check name. So I got both the SQL nodes here, you can see. So I'm going to add both here, and you can see both the SQL nodes is added now. So click next, and this is going to be a validation. So yes, I want to proceed with the validation. So it's going to, I strongly recommend to go with the validation for the cluster node. So it will tell you if there was any issue related to Windows Failover Cluster services, or any you are missing any configuration or anything. So go ahead and run the test. So this is before you begin. So this is validate a cluster wizard. So click next, and now what type of test you want. So I'm going to use run all tests recommended. So click on next, and now it's going to run lots of tests. So I recommend you to click on next and wait for some time. So this is going to take some time while checking all the parameters for the Windows failover cluster. So you need to um, wait for some time for this this validation wizard to be finished, and then you can see the results. So I'm going to pause the recording, since might be it's going to take 2 or 3 minutes to complete the validation, and then once the validation is finished, I'm going to resume from there. So now you can see everything got validated and we got most of the things successful. So I recommend you to go ahead and click on view report to analyze all the reports, and also I recommend you to save this report. handy, so you can refer this report in future if you need. So you can see inventory got successful, network got successful. In storage and system configuration we got some warning. So let's click on storage and see what warning we have. So in storage I can see there was one warning related to Microsoft MPIO based test. So you can see disk 0 is uh, unable to use the storage target path. So this is fine, since a disk 0 is let's verify once. So it's available. Disk 0 is basically my local disk, so this can be ignored. So now next, if you talk, but mostly this is going to be you need to make sure this you don't have any storage warning also. And if you have any warning in storage, I recommend you to go and fix the issue before you come. So in actual Windows failover cluster. So now let's move to system configuration. You will see everything is passed, only the software level is having warning, since the Windows update is not done on both the SQL nodes. So if you follow the correct resolution path, like you need to patch your machine and you need to fix if you having any storage like uh, warning, then you can fix those issues and you make sure everything is got succeeded. So you can go ahead and create the cluster. However, for me also this is going to be a fine, so I'm going to click on finish. Now you will see create cluster name is showing here. So in my environment, this is my cluster name and this is the IP address which I'm going to use. So WinSQL plus 01, so I'm going to type here. So WinSQL plus 01, this is my going to be my cluster hostname, and 99 is the IP address. So I already having DNS record created for this, so I'm good. So click on next, and now you will see here a small checkbox which is add all eligible storage to the cluster. So make sure you mark tick mark has been done on this basically small icon. So click next, and now you will see this is going to create your Windows Failover Cluster role. So you can see forming cluster this, and now same time I recommend you to go and in Active Directory and verify where you have a servers. You will see one Failover Cluster computer object created with the same name which you have done. So now you can see on the SQL Server you have successfully completed cluster wizard. So go ahead and click on finish, and now we got our cluster wizard Windows Failover Cluster, and you will see here IP address, name and disk, all the information. So now you need to go on storage and fix your disk name. So this is going to be our witness, so I'm going to call it like quorum disk. So this is going to be a quorum disk, and the below one is going to be a SQL disk 1, so SQL disk 01. So click on apply. Okay, so we are good. And next thing, you need to rename the network. So I'm quickly going to rename this also. So this is going to be my storage network, and this is going to be my heartbeat network. So heartbeat, and this is going to be my live migration, so I'm going to mark as live migration, and this is going to be domain connectivity, so mark it as a domain. And you have a small icon here to set the live migration next, so I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to only enable live migration on this next. So this is going to be our live migration NIC. So click apply. So okay, so we are done with the configuration of the Windows Failover Cluster. So we have completed this 7 tasks now, and now we are finally on the step to install SQL Server 2019 on a failover cluster on SQL node first, which is Win2K19 SQL 01. So I'm going to mount the installation media here. So from the CD drive, I'm going to use my ISO repository, Microsoft, and then I got SQL, and I got SQL Server 2019. So open this. Now you will see we got this SQL installation disk. So I'm going to run this disk, set up from this disk. So now you need to click on install, and then you got here new SQL Server Failover Cluster installation. So now I'm going to click I accept the license terms, click next, and then it's going to check some prerequisites, and I'm going to untick this Microsoft check for update now for now. So now we are good to proceed with the install setup file, so it's going to be ready soon. So now you can see it's install failover cluster rule status is running, so everything got passed. So few things like Windows firewall is missing, so I can go ahead and click on next, and then I'm going to select here the main role, which is database engine services, and when you click this you can see the SQL Server replication and few others are automatically going to select. So I'm going to select with the default one. So this is the basically going to be installed root for the SQL database server on this machine itself, but we require to configure the database engine configuration later, where we are going to define the disk. So it's going to do some prerequisite installation. It's, you can see, already installed, so we are good. So it's going to give you the disk size also, so we are good. Just going to click on next. So now it's going to proceed with the feature, and now you can see the SQL Server network name. So here we have already created the DNS record, which is here SQL DB01 or instance name you can say. So I'm going to call it like SQL DB01 is going to be my network name or cluster object name for this instance, and the default instance name I'm going to leave default MySQL Server. So click next, and then it's going to check the cluster resources like disk, other things, and network configuration. So it's going to take few seconds here. So you can see everything is looking good. So available storage, we got available storage, and this is also good, so we can go ahead and click on next. Now you can see the quorum disk is cannot be used, but we got SQL disk, our SQL disk, which we made available on both the SQL nodes. So now I'm going to click on next. This is automatically selected, so click next, and then you got option to assign the IP address. So I'm going to put it here 192.168.1.100, which we have mentioned here. If you go back, you can see this is the IP address and this is the database name. So go ahead and click next, and now you can see it's asking for the service account name. So I'm going to provide my service account name here, labs hands-on SQL admin. So I'm going to copy this and going to put my password for this service account. So one thing, you don't need to make the changes in startup type, leave it as it is, and you need to perform grant perform volume maintenance task beverage for SQL database engine services. So click next, and now you need to add the Windows authentication or SQL authentication. So I'm going to add my current user, since this is a SQL basically a SQL service account. So I'm going to add this, and if you go to directories, you can see it's automatically going to take the S drive as a data directory, since S drive is available on both the node and we have selected through the cluster disk selection. So we are good. Rest you can see other details also. Temp is also going to be saved in S. So if you need some modification in data directories, you can do it right away. So now we can go ahead and click next. And now you can see everything is ready, just we need to click on install. So now you can see the installation is started, and it's going to take around 5 to 10 minutes on my machine to get this installation finished. So now if I go here, you can see we got both nodes, SQL 1 and SQL 2, and you can see here we don't have any role now. So once this installation is finished and completed successfully, we will soon see the SQL DB01 instance here, basically a failover instance here. So while editing feature setting, it's going to take some time, a few seconds to get the installation started. So now you can see it's started. So it's, I'm going to pause the recording till this installation is going on. So I will resume once the installation is done. So now you can see the installation is succeeded, so everything looks good. Just go ahead and click on close, and now you can close the setup also, which is running on this machine. And now if I go here on my this SQL node 01, you can see here this SQL Server, my SQL Server instance is running with the name SQL DB01 and this IP address which we have configured. So this is good. And now you can see since the SQL Server is only installed on node 1, we need to install on node 2 also. So now I'm going to install this on node 2. So connect the virtual disk and then go to the library and select the 2019. Now you can see the disk is going to be mounted, so I'm going to run this installation wizard, and this time, and this is basically we have verified the SQL Server on a failover cluster, and now we are on the last step, which is add and install second node to Win2K19 SQL 0 on 02 on SQL failover instance. So this is what we are doing now. So click on install. Now you need to previously we have clicked on this new SQL Server Failover installation, and now we need to add in existing cluster. So add node to SQL Server Failover cluster. So just click on this. This is going to be a small installation, so let's click on next, and now accept the agreement. Click next, and going to skip the updates for now. Now basically it's going to copy the installation setup file in a local library, local disk, and then it's going to start from there. So everything is looking good here. We passed all the checks here. We got 2 warnings, so we can ignore it for now. It's related to firewalls. So now you can see this is going to automatically detect the SQL failover instance which is running in this cluster, since this is also part of the same Windows cluster where the SQL database is running. So we are good from here. Just close this, and now you can see node, this is on node SQL 1 for now. So name of this node SQL 02. So go ahead and click on next, and then it's going to take everything automatically. It's you don't need to put anything like storage and all details manually. You can see here this is going to take the IP address also, so you don't need to configure the IP address also. So click on next, and now you need to put the password for service account with the SQL server SQL service is running. So I'm going to type my password and click next, and now we are just one click away from the installation, so click on install, and now the installation is going to be started. So it's going to take another 5 to 10 minutes to get the installation done, and once the installation done, I will try to fail over the SQL instance from cluster 1 to cluster 2 to just verify everything goes well. And we have successfully created the SQL Server Failover Cluster. So just waiting to finish this installation, then we will try to fail over the SQL instance. So pausing the recording for now. So now you can see the installation is finished on node 2 also. So go ahead and click on close, and we can close this installation wizard also now. And now we are good to go and failover for the failover test. So I'm going to migrate this role from SQL node 1 to SQL node 2. So just select the node and click OK, and now you will see this is going to bring all the resources offline, and then going to be bring the this SQL node SQL DB instance on node 2. So you can see now owner node is 02, and it's bringing everything online. Now you can see everything now running on SQL node 2. So let's move once again to 1. So I'm going to move it back, so making everything offline. Now it's bringing the instance online on Windows K19 SQL 01. So this is done now. So this is how we can create the Windows Server based SQL Server 2019 failover cluster. So thank you for watching, and please subscribe me for more videos. And if you have any query, any question related to this, you can always post me on my given mail IDs. Thank you once again. Bye bye.